So much happens when I hear that satsang music. See, when I normally look inside myself, to myself, there's no longer anything there. It's just a vast emptiness that encompasses everything. So there's no point of the meditation because it's global. You'd have to point everywhere. But that's me, so I don't know how other people experience entering into satsang. I don't want to start asking now. It would take too long. It wouldn't accomplish much. But when you look inside with eyes closed, sitting upright and strong, I find there's nothing there. I mean, there's everything there. There's my body and the chair, the room. But nothing of the thought is in my mind. So I come into you as a group, having nothing on me, nowhere to go, nothing to say. And then somehow making a topic up in the moment. It would probably be easier if I just had everybody suggest a topic. But what's the fun in doing that? That's so ordinary. I'd rather just sit here and whine about not knowing how to do things. When I come here, I become a vast nothingness spread all over the universe. And in this nothingness, I have a deep love for everything and everybody. It spills out as a warmth in the heart that's pressing outwards towards you. And at the same time, I'm increasingly enraptured by the emptiness, so that all of my faculties of awareness are focused on the emptiness. But you can't really see emptiness, so you can't focus on it that well. But you can focus on the container of emptiness, which is that vast emptiness that has no beginning, no end. When I look inside my body, it's hollow. And it's filled with kind of a emptiness that extends all over. I'm wading or drowning, whatever the term you want to use, into that emptiness. Because all that I perceive is emptiness. And it feels so delightful. It's so powerful because it's the other side of the perceivable world. It's the noumenal state, the state where we just rest in ourselves. So I've gotten to this place that has no words. no direction, nothing to do, nothing to say. And I'm empty. I have nothing to do, nothing to say. So I look at you, all of you, and I try to feel what you want, where you're at. And I got the feeling that you're all comfortable with what I do. But you want to sit more or talk more? I prefer sitting more. What about you? You want this to be about question and answers? Or how to do powerful sitting? Or is it to be in a listening mode for chanting? Talk to me. Mark, what say you?
I'll be, I'm not going to make a choice. I'll leave it up to others, but I have a couple questions for you. Do you remember the video you did 13 years ago?
Oh, sure, that one, yeah.
Well, called The Final Truth.
No.
Okay, well, it's basically like you giving a verbal discourse on what you wrote in your self-realization and other awakenings. That's what it was. And I watched it, and I'm glad that I watched it because I understand what you're pointing to. I experience what you're pointing to, whereas maybe 3-4 years ago, I wouldn't have had such a clear understanding, clear experience of what you're talking about. So I highly recommend that if others are interested, that they watch your video called The Final Truth, which came out 13 years ago. And if you're so interested, if you are interested in what I'm going to say, Ed, I'm curious as to what you would change in what you said since you made it. Like whether you feel it still stands on its own or whether you would have.
Yeah, it stands on its own.
Okay, good. Okay. That's all I wanted to say, but very good job. I also would like to point to Ed has done a lot of great work, both video and writing, and some of it, if not a lot of it, is worth revisiting. I wouldn't obsess about it, but there are definitely some good stuff that has been done, has been stated very eloquently, that may be of interest to others here.
Where's the best stuff to be found? YouTube?
Yeah, well, I think that, the Final Truth is a good place to start because it's basically your newer understanding as of 13 years ago.
But where do we find it?
Well, yeah, that's on YouTube, exactly. But I also found a text that you make available on your older website. What's your older website? It is not real. .blogspot. Yeah. So on that one, you have this Tibetan monk who wrote a treatise on emptiness. And again, when I read it, there's so much in there. And so there's also good reference material that you've referenced long ago that's still relevant to at least me. So thank you for what you do, Ed. It's great. I'll leave it to the others as to how we're going to spend the rest of this session.
Okay. I've decided. Thanks for the input from all of you about what we do, but I'm going to talk to you about the emptiness state and try to foster it in you during satsang. I'm going to describe something like what it feels to be experiencing it. Here I am, a little putz, screwing around in front of a TV set watching some movies. But I say this isn't enough. So I begin practicing switching off my mind because everybody says it's to be found in emptiness. And if there are words, there's no emptiness. So how do I get my mind to stop? One way is to repress it, which is not a spiritual practice, so it doesn't get you much. But the other, I guess I first learned to do it by staring into the darkness that's in myself, sort of localized in my body. My body is hollow, it's translucent. I'm looking down into the darkness and I start expanding everywhere into the space that I am, because I am everywhere, everywhere, everywhere. And yet my body's here in this point in space and time. But the experience of losing oneself into the emptiness of the moment, of the day, of the hour, of the minute, without the mind moving, resting in myself, which means the sense of aliveness in my body that separates me from you and from the rest of the environment. But this sense of beingness, as I call it usually, extends outwards too. Because if I can see it, it's mine. If I can hear it, it's mine. Okay, what do you want? Little girl. Hey, come on. Come on. So I'm sitting this emptiness now. And I look outwards towards my audience, which would be you. And my emptiness now permeates my experience of you. I'm emptiness, you're emptiness. At least we can admit that emptiness is part of us, at least, if not all of us. And you can say, what is there in emptiness that you find so interesting? Well, for one thing, it's ecstatic. My whole body is bathed in bliss. There's a slight muscle tension throughout my body. That's like an elevated listening mode. And listening deeply, everything disappears. And I have nothingness. No, this nothingness can go anywhere, but there has to be some somethingness that chooses its initial way of looking at things. And I always do it the same way. The emptiness fills my body in the space around my body. And then there's the rest of the space to the ends of the universe. And what I do by feeling inside of my body is so much power. I'm like a flea on the side of an elephant. I can't bite it, and it's not going to try to hurt me at all. But that's what the difference is. I am nothing, and the universe is everything. But this nothingness state is extremely powerful because without it, there would be no somethingness. I find ecstasy in this state. My mind is absolutely silent. There's no thoughts going on. Even now, when I'm talking, the only words are coming from my mouth, not from my mind. And everywhere I look, there's nothing. But if I look at my body and feel my body, there's ecstasy. And it comes from the emptiness that I'm so open right now to. This is why I think I like to teach. I like to teach at the beginning and end of spirituality is not found in the world, but in the emptiness that underlines it, undermines it, underlies it. Because the emptiness really is an emptiness, it's just an absence of thoughts or words. But everything else under the sun happens in that wordless presence that is us. No, my body is supercharged with energy. I feel like I'm radiating my own personality into the environment around me, which contains the words that I want to speak about today. It not as a thought, but as a feeling. There is a vast emptiness everywhere, inside and out. It's found at first in life, let's say, in walking under the night sky and seeing a sensual infinity. There are different kinds of infinities, of course. There are many different kinds of mathematical infinities. They even have whole classes of infinities in mathematics. And a lot of people try to tie the emptiness they feel in meditation with the emptiness in mathematics, and that's a big mistake. The emptiness in mathematics lies within a context. The experience of emptiness, which really means the absence of me, of a center, of an Ed Muzika. Instead, the Ed Muzika is tainted by this personality. And this personality arrogates to itself the mission of talking to you about the nature of emptiness, the experience of emptiness, the bliss of emptiness, and the power of emptiness. It's all there. And just shutting up and sitting in place, experiencing yourself as much as you can, totally. It's a little different with a group because in that situation, you're no longer just sitting by yourself in emptiness, but everybody else is in that same emptiness with you. And we can feel the mutuality of the emptiness that extends into all of us. So dive into that emptiness within you and let it blossom and grow until it contains all things. It's within, it's also without, and permeates my experience of the world. The world, for me, is like a endless surging of visual emptinesses with people in them. I know it's kind of bizarre, but what the fuck? And I just relax into that emptiness. And as I relax into it, I go deeper. And as I approach disappearing into emptiness, I find I can truly meet emptiness here and share it with you. Everywhere I look and feel, there's nothing but emptiness. It's filled with phenomena like how I imagine I'm looking from the inside. But it surrounds me and envelops me. If I look at it one way, it seems I'm protected by the emptiness, the vastness around me. But if I look at inside of me, that emptiness is me. My emptiness is this very consciousness, this awareness of my body, this awareness of my heart and soul, and what they're doing in space and time. And the point of meditation is to integrate you into the great emptiness, the universal emptiness, which is also the universal presence. You're one. Adam, is that a live feed of that dog or coyote? And looks like a German Shepherd.
Yep, my personal coyote is hunting squirrels right now. She's loving her good weather out in the yard right now.
You're in Texas, right?
Yep.
I'm sorry for you. Nice scenery, but in a way, Texas is even worse than Arizona.
It does have some downsides, but I enjoy it overall.
Yeah, because you can be alone and happy being alone when there's nothing bothering you, like coming out of the environment and attacking something you have to deal with every 15 minutes.
True.
It's a kind of lazy grandness, emptiness, and bliss. And the power of emptiness, it's so incredible that the flip side of phenomenality is the power of emptiness. Someday, someone is going to explore this area of the linkage between the energy within and emptiness. But in the meantime, it's good enough just to be able to get into that emptiness. Stop your mind, stop your body, and become everything, including the power of the universe. And you can feel it moving through you. I feel rooted to the ground. I remember seeing a movie of a Zen master spiking a stick, spear, some kind, into the ground. And he said something to the effect, "This is how you must be. No mind, sticking into the ground and be all around. And when you do that, you flip out of the normal consensual reality we call our lives together. And you move to a place where you're the observer of everything. There's only two things. There's you as a source, And there's the space as the object. They're not separate, they are impenetrable. But if you can enter with a quiet mind, you do so with extraordinary power. That emptiness is not a weak state. Are you feeling what I'm talking about? That question brought you out of it, didn't
What's your question now?
it? So empty you don't remember it anymore. What is your experience of the totality of yourself right now? Can you encapsulate it in a few words? Or you can just sit there and project it?
Today it seems like it's a repeated returning to emptiness. So I go there and then find myself elsewhere and come back again.
Can you speak a little louder?
You want me to repeat myself?
Yeah.
I seem to have a repeated experience of being in the emptiness. And then I find myself elsewhere. And so I come back to the emptiness again.
You find yourself what with it?
In it,
What?
in the emptiness.
I can't hear what you're saying.
I go to the experience of perceiving the emptiness. And it feels like it's not really being in a place, but that's about the closest I can say. And then I notice that my mind has gone someplace else. And I come back once again to the emptiness.
Okay. Chris, the short form explanation of what you feel and experience right now. The short form.
No intent. Just is.
And what is that isness like? Is that a feeling of power? Is that a feeling or experience of emptiness?
It's a
I'm asking all of you to follow this at the same time. You're tongue-tied right now, Chris. I'll get back to you.
Alrighty.
Jackson, what is your experience of emptiness now?
Hey, Edgy. Yeah, it's a bit tired, but you saying my name kind of gave me a little jolt. Yeah, I feel great. I have a ton of gratitude, honestly, since coming to these satsangs. I find just the emptiness has started just to come to me throughout the day a lot. I get a bit bored if it's not blissful. Kind of waiting for bliss, emptiness a lot of the time. And then when it comes, I kind of just dive in for maybe a few hours. Yeah, one question is there a point when you no longer care, when it's just emptiness that one finds more boring, or with the blissful aspect to it?
Yeah. For me, it's always emptiness. It pervades everything, and it's extremely joyful and blissful. But the bliss is my experience of my own body, of being alive. But the environment echoes in every part of itself as a reverberation. Mark, what is your experience?
Um, have you ever smelled or tasted something that you liked, but that you couldn't describe what it was that you were? Yes, that's how I feel, because what I'm experiencing is essentially exactly the same thing you talk about. Maybe a little bit dialed down, but essentially exactly the same. But I don't have the ability to verbalize it like you do, just like I can't identify some of the attributes of the scent that I like, but that I can't pinpoint. But yeah, like I think if one is successful at this, one reaches a point in the practice where the emptiness, the beingness, whatever you want to call it, is essentially steady state, which doesn't mean that it's always at the same vividness or strength, but that it's always accessible and you're always looking from it. So, sometimes it's thinner, sometimes it's not as pleasant, but even at the least pleasant, it's generally a neutral space, neutral to pleasant to blissful. And I agree that the bliss comes from the body, comes from one's health, comes from those things, and it comes and goes. But one thing I'd like to say to Jackson is that I admire your dedication, your curiosity and passion. I would just be careful that you're not expecting the blissfulness too much, that you're not holding on to it too tightly, that expectation. But if it feels right for you, no problem. No problem. But yeah, the spaciousness, the calm is the main attribute, the pervasiveness. And it just vanquishes that which used to trouble me. And that which used to trouble me is the whole conditioning that we are raised with to believe in a narrative, in a way of feeling and being and believing that turns out to be a facade to some of us, not to everyone. There's nothing wrong with being in that mindset. Most of the people I know are in that mindset. But some of us have a taste of some of us, I think, were born with a taste of what we're looking at here, and have always known about it, even though it may not have been accessible. And that's why a lot of us are so driven and so passionate, because we know about it. Because when we were babies or children or young, we experienced it, and we may not have been able to understand what it was or what brought it about, but we knew that it existed and that it was the best. So that's all I want to say on that topic. Thank you. Everything is good here.
It's very strange. I feel stopped now, fully experiencing the emptiness. But the fullness of my body and of the objects around me are separate and equal in terms of how they affect me. In this state, they are not different from emptiness. But sometimes they are. When I consider my body being alive and put my attention to that, I re-enter my body and fill it with a kind of joyful embrace. The thing that is really important to know is that emptiness is your friend. It's not an enemy. It's not something to be feared. It's not something where you're going to get lost in it forever. And even if you are lost in it forever, that's a big gain over normal human life. What I want to help you do is to understand the fundamental state, the Grundlage in German, the Grundlage of our existence. And I can't really describe it that well. And each person may have a somewhat different experience of it now than how it's expressed. Well, for me, I feel I have a body, and that body buzzes with energy. And it's sitting inside of me in Satsang, exposed to the outer air, which is a little chilly for me. And there's no words anywhere, just a wilderness, a vast emptiness with little noises and things going here and there. But for me, there's only emptiness. And the emptiness is total freedom. I could do nothing forever and enjoy it. But when you're practicing in this area, you have to realize you're very close to the sleep state. And it's something you always have to be aware of to catch yourself going down the right tube, so to speak. You want to go down the tube of your own experience of yourself. But you also can go down the tube of the emptiness right next to you. And then you'll just disappear into your own emptiness and maybe go into sleep, which is kind of the natural associated state. If you go to a place where there are a lot of meditators, you always hear somebody snoring. Somebody will be asleep, and they'll be happy as a lark, sitting like a champ. And you'll wonder how they can do that, and all that's going on around them, and they're asleep and seemingly happy. There's no one that explodes and says, fuck you, and goes berserk in the satsang. We're too mellow for that. But I can think of that many people would not find this experience to be all that valuable. And this would be a lot of people because they can't get still enough to even imagine a totally emptiness. The closest thing they can get to emptiness is the emptiness of sleep. Mark, you appear to be the only one alive in satsang. They're actually moving and looking around.
Yeah, well, I've long ago reached the point where the beingness is flowing even when I'm just being me. So yeah, it's very nice to have that happen. It's all worth it for me at least. Is that okay that I appear to be alive in your satsang? Is that okay with you? Yeah. Okay. Because that's the way I normally am most of the time in your satsang. So I think you're acclimatized to it. But the idea that beingness can only occur under specific physical or other conditions is something that eventually I think one has to discard that belief, that assumption, those assumptions at some point in practice when it makes sense to drop it. Because all assumptions and understandings and whatever have to be dropped. Because what one holds on to, whether it be a thought, a belief, a bodily sensation, whatever, is what blocks the experience of which you speak. And I think a good practice that I do is, and it may not be applicable to everyone here. Here, I'm sure it isn't. But when I go deep into beingness and I've let go of everything, I'm as deep as I can, there seems to be this kind of, I don't know, like a wall of maybe stress. It's not a, it's a subtle thing. It's not, it's kind of like a limit as to how deep I can go. And then I see if I can deepen into that. And I can usually. And it's like one becomes unconscious while still awake, if that makes sense. So what I'm talking about is what I call the existential letting go, or what you would call, Edgy, the letting go of the witness, which is like the root letting go after everything else is let go of. That's how I kind of think of it or perceive it. Anyway, yeah. So I guess I'm kind of like the co-host now, huh? But no problem. I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Yeah. And the satsang you just gave is kind of like a bookend to the one you did in that YouTube video that I talked about called The Final Truth. It's kind of like an updated version of that. But I think all your satsangs are. But since I introduced the concept of emptiness and you went with it, which was the same content basically of the other one. So thank you for that. Now I know where you are now compared to back then, I think, in terms of your teaching. So thank you, Edgy. Everything's good.
I'm very rooted, sitting here. As a stationary point within the satsang. And when I become aware of you, each of you, one by one, I'm awareness of the emptiness that is you too. But I see some people, not now, today, they can't sit still in the emptiness. And they appear to be sort of restless. You can imagine emptiness as the sorcerer's cape. He wraps it around himself and disappears as object. But that's not that important. The importance is, what are you experiencing of yourself while we're sitting in emptiness? I'm trying to have you realize or experience in a powerful way the emptiness within you that's around you and everywhere. It permeates your body. It permeates your experience of the environment. It permeates the witness within.
I have some words now, Ed.
What?
I have some words now.
Mm-hmm.
It it feels to me like everything's happening, nothing's happening. It's a feeling from which I feel like existence and non-existence come. It's beyond those. It's something it's not either one, but it produces those things. Everything's in it, but it's nothing of itself. That's why I think it's hard for me to explain it, because it's the thing. The thing isn't even a good word, but the thing behind, like I said, everything and nothing. It's a it's it just it's this feeling of every, like an origin. It's not even golly. Everything
I
happens
think you
within
got to
me.
go back to it. I
Yeah.
don't think you're very clear on your own experience.
Okay. All right.
You have to understand, you know, that nothingness is not just a nice place to visit. It's your beingness. You, the life on top of it, the presence, the life you're living, thinking, talking, is but a shell of sentience laid on top of the essence, which is you, which when you examine yourself, you find nothing there. Okay. Okay. What do you want? Where do you want to go? Now, you often would feel like you've just wakened up from a dream. The emptiness and the experience of emptiness is the nothingness, which you leave and you feel somethingness. But it's an unpleasant and contracted thing compared with the bliss of emptiness. Everything on the outside of it, I see, seems personal, and not all I have the majesty of being the counterbalance of emptiness. Anyway, if you can sit in this kind of experience of emptiness as much as you can, till it's your friend, and you can do it at the drop of a hat, and let it grow over the years with you. It's not something you do for 6 months. It's something that permeates your entire life and can fill it with the kind of joyfulness of living a clean life that's not filled with garbage. I love you all, each and every one, even as I love myself. Continue to grow in this spirit of understanding and awakening to your own beingness, because in that is the power of emptiness and aliveness brought together in one vehicle. It's just that a lot of the Westerners have no idea about the emptiness as a vehicle for anything. But anyway, take care. See you next Sunday. Bye-bye. Now you guys can sit and bullshit with each other as I leave.